The morning sun rose over Skull Island like it did every day. But today was different. Today, something wrong hung in the air. Kong sat on his favorite mountain peak, watching the jungle below. He was massive, standing taller than the oldest trees. His dark fur moved gently in the wind. Kong was not just big and strong. He was smart. He protected this island. It was his home, and he loved every creature that lived here. Far across the island, in the golden grasslands, Mara stretched her powerful body. She was an alpha lioness, the leader of her pride. Her fur was golden brown, but silver streaks ran through it like lightning. Other lions respected her. They trusted her. Mara kept her family safe from danger. Neither Kong nor Mara knew that danger was coming from the sky. High above the clouds, a huge spaceship moved silently. Inside, Captain Vex smiled a cruel smile. He was a poacher, a hunter of rare animals. But he did not hunt for food. He hunted for money. Lots of money. "Sir, we have arrived at the target location," said one of his crew members. "Good," Vex replied. His eyes were cold. "Deploy the traps. I want every valuable creature on this island captured by sunset." The spaceship was filled with advanced technology. Energy nets that could catch anything. Sonic weapons that could knock out the biggest beasts. Cloaking devices that made the traps invisible. Vex had hunted on 100 planets. He always won. Small ships flew down from the main vessel. They landed quietly in different parts of the island. Poachers in dark suits jumped out. They moved quickly through the jungle, setting up their traps. Metal devices that hummed with strange energy. Nets that glowed with blue light. Cages that could hold creatures 10 times the size of elephants. Kong felt something was wrong before he saw anything. The birds were not singing their usual songs. The monkeys were quiet. Even the insects seemed nervous. Kong stood up and beat his chest. The sound echoed across the entire island. It was his way of asking, "What is happening?" 8. He climbed down from his mountain and walked into the jungle. His huge feet made the ground shake with each step. Kong's sharp eyes looked everywhere. Then he saw it. A strange metal box hidden under leaves. It was making a soft beeping sound. Kong had never seen anything like it before. He reached out carefully and touched it. Suddenly, blue energy shot out. Kong jumped back just in time. The energy net flew past him and wrapped around a tree instead. The tree crackled with electricity and fell over. Kong's eyes went wide. These were traps. Someone was hunting on his island. On the other side of Skull Island, Mara heard strange sounds. She was leading her pride to the water hole when she stopped suddenly. 3 of her young lions were caught in something. They were floating in the air, trapped inside glowing bubbles of energy. "Stay calm!" Mara roared to them, but she did not know what to do. The bubbles were solid. She could not break them with her claws or teeth. Then she saw the humans. They wore dark clothes and carried strange weapons. One of them spoke into a device on his wrist. 3 specimens captured, returning to base camp. Mara understood. These humans were stealing her family. Anger filled her heart. But she was smart. She could not fight them alone. Not yet. She needed to understand their weapons first. She followed them quietly through the tall grass. Her silver-streaked fur helped her blend with the shadows. The poachers did not see her. They walked for an hour until they reached a clearing. Mara's breath stopped. There was a huge camp hidden in the trees. Large cages held dozens of creatures from the island. Giant birds, huge lizards, even some of the peaceful plant eaters. All trapped. All scared. A massive cargo ship sat in the middle of the camp. Its doors were open, and Mara could see more empty cages inside. At that same moment, Kong arrived at the camp from the other direction. He had followed the trail of broken traps and captured animals. When he saw the camp, rage burned in his chest. But he stayed hidden behind the trees. Then Kong saw something that made him pause. Across the clearing, in the grass, another pair of eyes watched the camp. Intelligent eyes, angry eyes. Kong and Mara saw each other for the first time. Both were guardians. Both were protectors. Both were watching their home being destroyed. Kong and Mara stared at each other across the clearing. Neither moved. The giant ape and the silver-streaked lioness had never met before. They lived in different parts of the island. Kong ruled the mountains and jungles. Mara ruled the grasslands and valleys. Kong took one step forward. The ground shook slightly. Mara's muscles tensed. She showed her teeth in warning. This was not the time to fight each other. But neither trusted the other yet. Suddenly, screams filled the air. Both turned to look at the poacher camp. The humans were dragging a family of giant sloths toward the cargo ship. The mother sloth cried out for her babies. The poachers were using long poles that shot electricity. Every time the sloths tried to resist, they got shocked. Kong's fists clenched. Mara's tail lashed back and forth with anger. Without thinking, Kong charged forward. He roared so loud that birds flew away from trees a mile away. The poachers turned and saw him coming. Their eyes went wide with fear and excitement. "It's him, the big one!" One poacher shouted. "Captain Vex will pay us double for that creature." They raised their weapons. Strange guns that hummed with energy. They fired at Kong. But these were not bullets. They were sonic waves that hit Kong like invisible hammers. The sound hurt his ears terribly. Kong stumbled and fell to one knee. "No," Mara thought. She saw Kong in pain. If the giant ape fell, what chance did she have? These humans had weapons she did not understand. Mara made a choice. She ran into the camp from the side, moving like lightning. The poachers did not see her coming. She leaped at the human, holding the sonic weapon aimed at Kong. She did not hurt him badly, just knocked him down. The weapon flew from his hands. With the sonic attack stopped, Kong shook his head and stood up. He saw what Mara had done. She had helped him. He nodded at her with respect. Fall back! Fall back!" the poachers shouted. They ran toward their vehicles and drove away quickly. They were not ready to face both Kong and Mara together. When the camp was empty, Kong walked slowly toward Mara. She stood her ground, watching him carefully. Kong sat down to make himself less scary. He was still huge, even sitting. He pointed at the cages. Then he pointed at Mara's pride members floating in the energy bubbles. Then he pointed at himself and at her. Mara understood. He wanted to work together, to free everyone. She walked closer and sat down too. She made a soft sound, not a roar, but something gentler. It meant, yes, in her language. For the next hour, they tried to break the cages and traps. Kong used his great strength to bend the metal bars. But when he touched the energy fields, electricity shocked him. Mara tried to dig under the cages, but the ground was too hard, and sensors detected her movement. Kong grew frustrated. He beat his chest and wanted to smash everything. But Mara noticed something. Every time a trap was about to activate, it made a small humming sound first. A warning sound. She showed Kong by pointing with her paw. Kong watched carefully. Mara was right. The traps hummed 3 seconds before activating. That was just enough time to move away. They tested this discovery. Mara walked close to a trap. When it hummed, she jumped away. The energy net shot out but caught nothing. Kong learned too. He listened for the hum. His big ears could hear it from far away. Together, they started freeing the captured animals. Kong would rip open a cage door while Mara listened for trap warnings. When she roared a warning, Kong would move. When Kong needed to reach something high, Mara would distract the sensors by running past them. Slowly, they freed the giant birds, the huge lizards, the plant eaters. Each freed animal ran back into the jungle, finally safe. But the three young lions were still trapped in the floating energy bubbles. Kong tried to pop the bubbles, but they were too strong. Mara walked around them, studying them carefully. She saw a small device on the ground under each bubble. A metal box with a glowing button. Mara looked at Kong. She touched the device with her paw, asking him what to do. Kong understood. He carefully pressed the button with one huge finger. The bubble disappeared. The young lion fell safely to the ground. Mara licked his face with relief and love. They freed the other two lions the same way. Mara's pride was complete again. The young lions rubbed against their leader, so happy to be free. But their celebration was cut short. A loud sound came from the sky. They looked up and saw something terrifying. The main spaceship was descending. Its bottom opened, and dozens of small flying machines came out. Drones. Each one had cameras and weapons. A voice boomed from speakers on the drones. It was Captain Vex. "You made a big mistake, beasts. Nobody steals from me. Now I will capture both of you. You will spend the rest of your lives in cages." The drones spread out across the island, searching. Red laser lights scanned the jungle and grasslands. Kong and Mara looked at each other. They had won a small battle, but the real war was just beginning. And this time, the poachers were angry. Mara roared. Kong beat his chest in answer. They would fight together. The drones flew everywhere like angry metal wasps. Their red scanning lights swept across trees, rocks, and rivers. Captain Vex wanted Kong and Mara captured before nightfall. He wanted them alive. Dead animals were worth nothing to his buyers. "Find them!" Vex shouted at his crew. "Use every scanner we have. They cannot hide forever." Kong and Mara moved quickly through the jungle. The freed animals had scattered to safety, but now they had to save themselves. Kong knew the island better than anyone. Every cave, every hidden path, every dangerous place. He led Mara to a deep valley filled with thick fog. The drones could not see through the fog clearly. Their sensors got confused by the moisture in the air. It gave Kong and Mara time to plan. But planning was hard when they could not speak the same language. Mara watched carefully and understood some of it. She drew too, showing her grasslands and the paths her pride used. Slowly, they created a map together, a map of their island. Kong pointed to a place on the map, the Crystal Caves. He made sounds and gestures. Mara tilted her head, confused at first. Then Kong picked up a rock and threw it. It made a loud echo when it hit a cliff. He pointed to his ears. Mara understood now. The caves made sounds louder, much louder. She nodded. She had an idea forming in her mind. Meanwhile, back at the camp, a young poacher named Rin watched the monitors. She was new to Captain Vex's crew. She needed money for her sick mother back home. That was why she took this job. But watching the trapped animals had made her feel sick inside. "Rin, are you paying attention?" Another crew member barked at her. "Yes, sir," she said quickly. But her heart was not in it anymore. On her screen, she saw Kong and Mara in the foggy valley. The camera was not clear, but she could see them drawing in the dirt. Planning. Working together. They were not just dumb animals. They were intelligent. They cared about their home. Rin looked away from the screen. She felt ashamed. In the valley, Kong heard something. His huge ears picked up the sound of drones getting closer. He grabbed Mara gently and pointed up. They needed to move. Now. They ran through the fog toward the crystal caves. Behind them, 6 drones emerged from the mist. Their weapons charged up with a high-pitched whine. Targets acquired. The drones reported to Captain Vex. Pursuing now. Pursuing. Kong and Mara reached the caves just as the drones fired. Energy blasts hit the cave entrance, making rocks explode. Kong covered Mara with his huge body, protecting her from the flying stones. Inside the caves, everything was dark and cold, but beautiful. Crystals grew everywhere, glowing with soft blue and green light. They were bigger than houses. The ceiling was so high that even Kong could stand up straight. The drones flew into the cave entrance, their lights cutting through the darkness. Kong looked at Mara. She understood. Together, they roared. The sound was incredible. Kong's deep, thunderous roar mixed with Mara's fierce, sharp roar. The crystals caught the sound and made it bigger, louder. The noise bounced off every wall, every crystal, growing stronger and stronger. The drone's sensors overloaded. The sound was too much for their delicate equipment. Sparks flew from their circuits. One by one, they fell from the air, crashing onto the cave floor. 6 drones destroyed. Kong and Mara looked at each other and made sounds that almost seemed like laughing. But Captain Vex was watching through the drone cameras before they went dark. He saw what happened. He saw how smart these 2 creatures were. Interesting, he said, stroking his chin. They are learning to use their environment as a weapon. We need a new approach. He turned to his crew. Activate the barrier walls. Section off the entire northern part of the island. Trap them in a smaller area. They cannot run if there is nowhere to run. Huge machines rose from the ground all around the northern territory. The poachers had buried them days ago, waiting for the right moment. The machines hummed with power and created walls of solid energy. They were 10 feet thick and impossible to break. Kong and Mara emerged from the crystal caves and saw the glowing walls surrounding them. They were trapped in an area only 5 miles wide. The walls slowly moved inward, making the space smaller and smaller. We have them now, Vex smiled. Send in the hunter teams. I want those 2 in cages within the hour. 20 poachers in heavy armor marched through the energy wall. They carried the strongest weapons. Nets made of titanium, sonic cannons, tranquilizer darts, strong enough to knock out a dragon. Kong beat his chest in defiance. Mara roared at the approaching hunters, but both knew they were in serious danger. The energy walls prevented escape. The hunters were well armed, and the space was getting smaller. Kong looked down at Mara. She looked up at him. They had learned to trust each other, to work together. But would it be enough? One hunter raised his weapon and fired. A huge net flew through the air toward Kong. He tried to dodge, but the space was too small. The net wrapped around his arm. Electricity coursed through it, making Kong roar in pain. Mara saw Kong struggling. She ran at full speed toward the hunter who fired. But 3 more nets shot out from different directions. She dodged 2, but the third caught her back legs. She fell, trapped. The hunters moved closer, confident now. Their prey was caught. But then something unexpected happened. From the jungle around them, animals began to appear. The giant sloths Kong and Mara had freed. The huge lizards. The massive birds. Even small creatures that Kong had protected for years. They all remembered who saved them. And now, they came to help. The hunters stopped in their tracks. They looked around nervously. Dozens of giant creatures surrounded them from every direction. The animals did not attack, but their presence was threatening. The ground shook as the giant sloths moved forward. The huge lizards hissed warnings. The massive birds circled overhead, blocking out the sun. Fall back! Fall back to the barrier! The lead hunter shouted. Kong used this moment. With all his strength, he tore the electrified net from his arm. It hurt terribly, but he was free. He quickly pulled the net off Mara's legs. She jumped up, ready to fight. But the energy walls were still closing in. Every minute, the space got smaller. Soon there would be no room to move. All the animals would be trapped together like fish in a net. Kong looked up at the sky. He saw the main spaceship hovering above. That ship controlled everything. The barriers, the drones, all of it. He needed to stop that ship somehow. Mara saw Kong staring at the ship. She understood what he was thinking. But how could they reach something so high in the sky? Inside the spaceship, Captain Vex watched his monitors with growing anger. Those animals are ruining everything. Activate Protocol Omega. Now! Sir, Protocol Omega will capture everything in that zone. All the creatures. Even our men. A crew member said nervously. I don't care, Vex shouted. Those hunters knew the risks. Activate it now. A crew member reached for the control panel. But before she could press the button, Rin grabbed her hand. Don't, Rin said quietly. This is wrong. All of this is wrong. Let go of me, Rin. That's an order, the crew member yelled. Other crew members turned to watch. Some looked angry at Rin, but others looked uncertain. They had seen Kong save a poacher from quicksand earlier. They had seen how the animals worked together to protect each other. Deep down, some of them felt guilty. We came here to capture animals and sell them, Rin said, her voice getting stronger. But these creatures are protecting their home. They have families. They have feelings. What we are doing is not hunting. It is stealing. Enough of this. Captain Vex pulled out his weapon and pointed it at Rin. Step away from that console, or I will shoot you myself. Rin's hands shook, but she did not move. She had made her choice. 2 other crew members stood up, then 3 more, then 5. Half the crew was now standing with Rin, blocking Vex from the controls. Traitors, all of you, Vex screamed. Fine, I will do it myself. He pushed past them and slammed his fist on the Protocol Omega button. Down below, Kong heard a terrible sound, a deep humming that made his bones vibrate. He looked up and saw something horrifying. The sky was opening. No, not opening. Something was coming down. Something massive. It was a net. But not a normal net. This net was the size of the entire Northern Territory. It fell from the spaceship like a huge metal blanket, crackling with energy. It would capture everything underneath it. Every animal, every tree. The animals panicked. They ran in all directions, but the energy barriers blocked their escape. They were trapped between the falling net and the walls. Kong made a decision, a terrible, brave decision. He roared at all the animals, getting their attention. Then he pointed at himself and at the falling net. He pointed at them and at the spaces where the net was weakest. Mara understood immediately. Kong was going to hold up the net while the animals escaped. No! Mara wanted to roar. It was too dangerous. The net would capture him. But she saw the determination in Kong's eyes. He was willing to sacrifice himself to save everyone else. Kong climbed onto the highest rock he could find. The net fell toward him. He raised his massive arms and caught it. The weight was incredible. The electricity coursed through his body, making him scream in pain. But he held on. His muscles strained. His arms shook. But he held the net up, creating gaps at the edges. Go! Go! Mara roared at the other animals. She led them toward the gaps. The giant sloths went first, crawling under the net where Kong held it highest. The lizards followed. Krong. The birds flew through. One by one, the animals escaped. But the net was getting heavier. Kong's strength was fading. His arms began to lower. The gaps were closing. Mara got all the animals through. Then, she looked back at Kong. He was on his knees now, the net pressing down on him. Soon it would capture him completely. She could escape. She could save herself and her pride. But that thought lasted only a second. Instead, Mara ran back toward Kong. She called out with the loudest roar she had ever made. It was not just her voice. It was a signal. A call for help. From every corner of the island, animals heard that roar. The creatures that Kong and Mara had freed. The ones who owed them their lives. They all heard the call. And they all answered. The freed animals came running, flying, and crawling back toward the northern territory. Hundreds of them. An entire island coming to save their guardian. Inside the spaceship, Rin saw what was happening on the monitors. Tears filled her eyes. She turned to the crew members standing with her. "We have to help them," she said. "We have to shut down that net." "But Captain Vex locked the controls," someone said. Rin looked at the control panel. Then she looked at the power cables running along the wall. She grabbed a fire axe from the emergency station. "Then we shut down the power the old-fashioned way," she said. She raised the axe high. Rin brought the axe down hard. Sparks flew everywhere as the blade cut through the power cables. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in every corridor. "What have you done?" Captain Vex screamed. He lunged at Rin. But 3 crew members grabbed him and held him back. "What we should have done from the beginning," Rin said firmly. "The right thing." Down on the island, Kong felt the net suddenly get lighter. The electricity stopped flowing through it. His strength returned just enough to push harder. He lifted the net higher, roaring with all his might. Mara and her pride reached him first. They grabbed the edge of the net with their teeth and pulled. It did not do much, but every bit helped. Then, the giant sloths arrived. They were slow but incredibly strong. They pushed against the net from below, supporting Kong's arms. The huge lizards used their powerful tails to whip at the net's supports. The massive birds grabbed the net with their talons and tried to lift it. Even the smallest creatures helped, chewing through the net's electronic wires. All of them working together. All of them united. Inside the ship, more systems began failing. The power cables Rin cut were connected to everything. The engines sputtered. The barrier walls flickered and started to disappear. The drones fell from the sky like dead insects. "Emergency power! Switch to emergency power!" Vex shouted, breaking free from the crew members. He ran to the backup controls and started pressing buttons frantically. But it was too late. The ship was losing altitude. It tilted to one side, throwing everyone off balance. On the ground, Kong saw his chance. With the animals helping him and the net's power failing, he found strength he did not know he had. He pushed up with everything he had left. His legs straightened. His arms extended fully. With one final, earth-shaking roar, Kong threw the net off completely. It flew backward through the air and crashed into the forest, harmless now without its power. Kong collapsed to his knees, exhausted. His body was covered in burns from the electricity. He was hurt badly, but he was alive, and so was everyone else. Mara rushed to his side. She licked his wounded arm gently, a sign of respect and gratitude. Her pride gathered around them protectively. The other animals formed a circle, keeping watch over their fallen guardian. Above them, the spaceship continued losing power. It spun slowly in the air, unable to stay aloft. The cargo bay doors opened, and the few remaining captured creatures fell out. But they did not fall to their deaths. The giant birds caught them in midair and carried them safely to the ground. "We need to abandon ship," someone yelled inside the vessel. "Everyone to the escape pods." Crew members ran in all directions. Rin helped the ones who were injured. She made sure everyone got to safety. But Captain Vex refused to leave. "No, this is my ship, my operation. I will not lose everything." "Captain, we have to go now," Rin shouted at him. "The ship is going to crash." "Then let it crash. I am not leaving without my prizes." Vex's eyes were wild with greed and madness. Rin looked at him sadly. She had tried to save him too. But some people could not be saved from themselves. She ran to an escape pod and launched just as the ship began its final descent. The spaceship crashed into the ocean far from the island. It sank quickly, taking Captain Vex with it. The escape pods floated safely on the water. Rescue ships would find the crew eventually, but they would also find evidence of the illegal poaching operation. Rin had made sure to send all the data to the authorities before abandoning ship. Back on the island, Kong slowly stood up. His body hurt everywhere, but he was okay. He looked around at all the animals that had come to help him. Animals he had protected for years. They had protected him in return. Mara stood beside him, her silver-streaked fur glowing in the setting sun. Her pride gathered around her, all safe and together. She looked up at Kong and made a sound of friendship, of trust. Kong responded with a gentle rumble. He reached down carefully and touched Mara's head with one huge finger. It was a gesture of respect, of partnership. The other animals began to make their own sounds. Roars, calls, chirps, and songs. It was like a celebration, a symphony of freedom. They had won. Together, they had protected their home. As the sun set over Skull Island, Kong walked slowly toward his mountain. Mara followed part of the way, then turned toward her grasslands. They looked at each other one last time. They lived in different parts of the island. They spoke different languages. They were different in every way. But now, they were friends, guardians, who had fought side by side. Kong climbed to his favorite peak and sat down, looking out over the island. In the distance, he could see Mara on her own high ground, watching over her territory. The island was safe. The poachers were gone. Peace had returned. But both guardians knew something important now. They were not alone. If danger ever came again, they would face it together. Kong beat his chest once. The sound echoed across the entire island. From far away, Mara's roar answered him. It was a promise, a bond between protectors. The stars began to appear in the night sky. The island's creatures settled down to sleep, safe in their homes, and two guardians kept watch from their peaks, ready to defend their home forever. The end was not really an end. It was a new beginning, a beginning of unity, courage, and hope. Because true strength was not about being the biggest or the strongest. True strength was about standing together when it mattered most. And on Skull Island, that lesson would never be forgotten.